Let's see. Yeah, we got that part. And Brian thinks you're being dishonest, but
I could tell he's a member of my fan club, right? I get a lot of enemies somehow. Who knows how?
This is not really a question, but Sadie Maureen Jones says the world would be a better place without religion in it, which is utterly wrong. But
yeah, you know, I think one of the main reasons that I think religion is good is because, especially the Christian religion, is the idea of trying to act like Jesus. If everyone actually tried to act like Jesus, it'd be a pretty good deal out there.
Absolutely.
I mean, I understand there are bad people in all these different groups, but and there are bad Christians. I mean, look at the people in Ireland constantly fighting all the time, you know, and that kind of thing. And we've got different groups doing different things. The YECs out there disagreeing with the OECs and that kind of thing. But all in all, if people would just sort of switch gears and focus on our source, I think that would make a lot of sense.
Well, and I'm not a big fan of the whole, the world would be a better place without religion, because like these people who say that, they haven't proposed a good solution, a good historical example of one being produced. I mean, all their examples are like these one-offs, like, you know, secular Europe, as they say, which, you know, is really controversial.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you wonder what will people, I mean, what sort of external accountability will people feel if there isn't, if they don't think there's a God? And you go back into, and I hate to bring this up, but if you go back into Soviet Russia and you look at the way that atheism had been leading that economy, and it's not really atheism, the communism belief that they had at that time during Stalin and Lenin, is they felt that people were pretty expendable. The state was what was important, and Marxism was what was important. And if people didn't agree with them, specifically capitalists or Christians, they got rid of 50 million Christians in Russia, I read.
Not to mention other religions were targeted too, like even some Buddhists and
yes,
the Islamic areas.
You're right. You're right. Absolutely.
And I was going to say the same thing. It was also the same thing in Cambodia under the Khmer Rouge. My ex-girlfriend is the daughter of Khmer Rouge genocide survivors, and they told me one time about witnessing a Buddhist monk who had his eye, who had a lit cigarette shoved into his eye, and I literally shed a tear when I heard that story. And
that's horrible.
Yeah, they were trying to get rid of the Buddhist clergy there, and it was really horrendous. There's something else I was going to say, but I forget now. Oh, I was going to say, yeah, you tend to notice that when religion goes away, either, you know, forcibly or, you know, just because people become more secular or wealthy or whatever, you tend to notice that a lot of these weird new ideologies emerge. Like right now, we're seeing kind of the rise of, in the United States and in the West in general, as Christianity is declining, we're seeing the rise of kind of like alt-right white nationalism, and a lot of that has to do with like neo-paganism.
Yeah, well, I think we're seeing a rise in what people call themselves as spiritual instead of being necessarily Christian. Like they might say we're spiritual, they kind of lean a little bit towards the Buddhist idea, and so we do see some of that too. Like Sam Harris is an example. He was an atheist, but I think now he's kind of latching on to some of the Buddhist ideas and calling himself more of a spiritual person, even though Buddhists can be atheists. So I think he might be putting himself into that camp, a spiritual atheist Buddhist sort of person.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. And well, I just mentioned that because like I read a book in high school that I still have called it was by an author named Carla Poe, and it was called New Religions and the Nazis. And it basically talked about how after World War I in Weimar Germany, there had been this huge crisis of and loss of faith, you know, in the mainstream German religion, which was Christianity. And this author mentioned how in place of that, you had a lot of these new kind of what she called new Aryan religions that kind of glorified the German race and whatnot. And that became really popular in the 1920s. And so by the time Hitler came around, it was kind of the norm, and it really helped justify a lot of the atrocities in Nazi Germany, these new Aryan religions.
Well, that was their view. That was the thing that Hitler did. He did a few things. One is he tried to capitalize on religion and tried to capitalize on Christianity, even though he stated privately many times that he did not like Christianity, wanted to stamp it out. But he knew that he could use Christianity as a vehicle to make his ideas get through to some of the Christians who were in Germany. But what he did that was really bad was he went into eugenics, which is, again, the idea of trying to, like how you breed dogs into really bigger dogs or smaller dogs. He wanted to breed a better human race. And so that was his whole idea. He would exterminate these portions of the human race that he considered inferior. And he would instead just try to go for the Aryan race that he invented. And so that was his whole thing. And so going back to that, I mean, thank God we got out of that. Imagine the world if he would have somehow won that war.
Yeah. A lot of those viewpoints, as explained by Dr. Carla Powell in that book, she mentions were because of the new Aryan religions that were emerging in Germany after World War I, and people had lost faith in Christianity during the Weimar era.
Yeah, it was a scary time. I can't even imagine how living back then would have been. It would have been terrible. We're living in a pretty good time. I mean, a lot of times people complain, but I'd say all in all, this is a pretty ideal time to live. If we need information, we just pick up our phone. It takes about 2 seconds. It's like in the old days when I was young, we had to go to the library to get our information, and we had to use a typewriter, and we didn't have easy access to really much at all.
So, no, yeah, I would disagree. I would disagree. It's a shitty time to live.
Well,
the 90s was the best time to live.
90s were fun.
Oh, the 90s was the best time to live.
I barely remember the 90s. I was born in 93, and
I'm sorry.
I remember a lot of the 2000s.